Here's our new magic press. So it comes in a tin, and inside we have interlocking rings. This is 3 millimeters, 4, 5, and 6. And they stack together easily to form different heights. Okay. You'll also find 2 plates. This is the bottom plate, and it has a ring attached. And this is the top plate, and it has concentric circles on it to show measurements. The smallest at the inside is 0.25 of an inch, and the largest on the outside is 1.5 inches. So these are the size of the circle that you can make. Now we're not really trying to make circles, we're trying to make beads. So inside you're also going to find 5 of our exclusive bead pins. And how that works is there is a tiny hole meant to fit the bead pin in the center of each plate. The pin will go through both plates. And the smallest, thinnest that you can make is 2 millimeters because that is the size of the attached ring. Okay, now let's say you wanted to make a 2 millimeter bead. I would say that's a small bead. Now we have some cutters here. It doesn't matter what shape cutter you use. I'm going to use this one, and I'm actually going to use half of the clay. Because I'm making a very small bead. So I can now make 2 beads because I've got 2 pieces of clay. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this, and this is going to depend on how your hands work, how precise you personally are, because sometimes this can be tricky. So I'm going to place first the clay over the center hole there, and then I'm going to use my top of the press, also centering the hole, centering the middle, and I'm going to just press it flat. And then I'm going to slide my bead pin through the holes. So we have 2 equal pieces of clay based on the thickness of the clay and the cutter. This is very similar to making a clay recipe. And this is how you can make your beads all exactly the same. For example, if I wanted to make a bracelet and I needed, say, a strand of beads, I could keep doing this. I can cut several pieces with the same thickness and cutter, and my beads will all be the same shape and size and weight, right? So we'll take our clay, and I want to show you the challenge of doing something only 2 millimeters thick, the thickness of this bottom ring. So I'm going to go ahead and set it up by placing my bead pin through the hole in the bottom piece. Then I'm going to thread my clay onto the bead pin. Next is the top of the press. And we just press it down until it meets. Then we're going to twist the top. And here's the challenge. This is acrylic. Your polymer clay will want to stick to it, so we're going to have to slide it off. Okay? So here is your 2 millimeter bead. You can fix that a little bit. Let's put it on our bead baking tray. If I can find mine, here we go. and then you can make more. Now let's do a bead that's a little bit thicker. So we'll use the next size ring, and it just snaps on there. And this one, I believe we're going to go to 4 millimeters by putting this on here. So the second size ring, because each ring snaps onto the one below it, we're going to get a 4 millimeter bead, which is twice as thick as the one we just made. And we'll get another pin. This time, let's do it without putting the pin through first. So we're going to put the bead in the middle. And then we're going to press the magic press top down over this bead. And feel, you're going to need to feel with your fingers, because now you need to line this up. This is the challenging part. And get your hole through the center and through the whole thing. I like to remove any rings that are on here because, again, the bead does like to stick to the acrylic. So you may need to find your blade and just pop it off. Okay. Let's make one that's 3 pieces big. And we'll make it a little taller. The hardest part ever making a bead is getting the bead pin through the center. That takes practice to try to get it through the center so that when you press the bead, everything is in the middle and lined up. I prefer it when the bottom piece pops off. I feel that this is a little easier to slide your blade underneath if you need to get the bead off. It's just called the capillary effect. The clay just likes to stick to something that is smooth and flat. All right, so now, since let's do a couple beads using this flower cutter just for fun. See, it doesn't matter what cutter you use if you're trying to make beads that are all the same shape and size. You just need to use the same thickness and the same cutter. I'm attempting to make my bead oval because sometimes, believe it or not, when you're doing this type of technique and trying to get the bead pin through the center of the bead, it's a little bit easier if you have an oval because you can aim to go from end to end, and then you'll have more or less a bead that's pierced through the center. It's a little harder to pierce a round piece of clay right in the middle. Now make sure when you're attaching your top plate that you have the words facing you and not upside down, because if you have the words facing you, then the back side is completely flat. But if you have the words backwards, then these rings are going to press onto the piece of clay. And this time, there we go. So again, you can pop that off if you need to have a little extra space to just slide the end of a blade under here. And often it's not the whole way around, you just need to get some air under there to allow it to release. So we'll do a second one. Again, making it an oval so that I have a way to aim for the end of the clay in an attempt to get this mostly in the middle. I didn't put my other ring on it, so let's do that. I want them to be the same size. And of course, the other goal is to touch the bead as little as possible so that you have that perfect rondelle look to it without any fingerprints. So you could do this all day long and create necklace beads that look like those candy necklaces, or bracelet beads that are all the same size. I'll use the middle-sized rings. Here's one and the other. And I wanted to show you how to do that oval shape so that in case you want to use it. If you roll your clay in the center of your hand, you get a circle. If you roll it on the outside edges of your palm, which means pressing the clay to the outside as you are rolling it, it comes out oval. So just encourage the clay to roll along the outside edge of your hand, and you get that oval shape, which I generally feel is easier to get in the center of your bead, because you can pierce one end and then aim for the other, aim to come out the other side. As always, with any sharp tool, be careful, don't poke yourself. Our beading pins are excellent. They're very sharp and they're thin and strong. No one else has these. This is a Create Along exclusive product. Okay, so I'm going to give this a good press and twist a little bit. That tends to release the clay, and if you're very gentle, maybe this one is very stuck. Okay, maybe sometimes you can just pop it off there. Most of the time I find that I need to slide a blade under here to just allow it to release. It's a good thing, and it's a practice thing. It's good because it creates that beautiful flat side on your bead, and it takes a little bit of practice, so don't be frustrated, just practice it. Once you figure out how it works for you, it'll be easy to repeat. And because this goes quite tall, you can lock all of these together and create beads that are 17 millimeters tall, is as tall as this goes. So let's take the rest of our clay and make a big bead. Let's see how much will fit in here. I don't know if I can take this whole piece. That will be a very large bead. Just depends on what you're making. It will fit. Usually, here's a hint, when I'm going to make a bead this big, I'm not going to use all of my nice colored clay. I'm probably going to use a core made out of scraps and wrap the color I want to use on the outside. That way I can use up scraps and not use up all of my good color. I also most likely would make a bead this size hollow in the middle, so I wouldn't be using this press. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. I like to give it a little twist, okay? That's my personal preference. I feel like the beads come out better that way. I also feel that for me personally, when I give it a good press and twist, the clay tends to stick to the top piece, which makes it easier to remove. So there you have it, a nice big chunky rondelle bead with flat edges, so it'll sit up next to the rest of the beads in the series if you choose to make a nice statement necklace with big beads on it. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and this is the magic press tool that you can find at createalong.com.